Ruben, 1-0 defeat today. How do you think your boys did? How do you summarise the 90 minutes?
Yeah, look, game of two halves for me. I thought first half we were pretty sloppy. Definitely well below our best of what we've been in previous weeks, with some positive performances. But I thought second half we started to control the game a little bit better, and it looked a little bit more like us. But obviously, disappointing not to get a result.
Pushing hard at the ends, was there any? Do you feel like if you'd had another 10 minutes or so, a goal would have come, or do you think it was just one of those days?
No, look, I think so. I think that's one of the big positives would be the fighting spirit of some of the boys. We finished the game there with a lot of youngsters and guys making A-League starting debuts, and guys coming off the bench making their first appearance at the level. When we threw everything at them late, just didn't quite have the quality in those moments to go and get something. But I felt like for the most part we were probably good for a point, to be honest. Today I thought we worked really hard. But yeah, hell of a goal from them, and we've got to be better in that moment.
It was noticeable when the teams came out today that Thomas Waddingham wasn't a part of the squad. Why wasn't he there today? Is it related to transfer interest? Yeah,
look, it is. There's those rumours are true, and there's, like I've been saying for a few weeks, there's been a lot of interest around Tommy, and rightfully so. And not going to talk about the inner workings of that deal, but let's just say it's a positive for Tommy and his career, and it's a positive for our club financially.
Well, 10 News Brisbane reported yesterday that it was Portsmouth that he's off to. Is that correct?
Yeah, look, there's been a couple of offers, to be honest, and until it's concrete, I'm not really going to comment on who that is.
I guess it's now a competition record worst start to a season by any club. What's the morale like with the players? I mean, you did say there was a bit of fighting spirit there today, but what's the morale like?
Look, I think if you look hard enough, you can see, and. The players at the end of that game still chasing it down and still throwing everything at Melbourne City, given the predicament that we're in, shows how resolute the group is. And that's not just today. That's been like that for, week on week for the most part. We've been very competitive in every game. You look at the losses, the margins are very small. There's probably a lot of games, 7 or 8 of our losses have come by 1 goal. There's a lot of context around how our club finds itself in this position. Let's not forget, when I arrived at the club, they had lost, 7 of the last 8 games. So there's some issues there for our club, and we're in a rebuilding phase. And obviously the budget cuts and the financial constraints in the middle of recruitment in the off-season have, put a big dent in the progress that we've had at the start of this season. But it doesn't put a dent in our longer-term vision of how we rebuild this club.
I guess we are in a win-loss industry, to put it bluntly. Do you feel any pressure in your own security in the job, or not really?
Look, I don't. I try not to make it about myself. I try and make it about the club and the context of the club. I think, like I said, it's been a steady decline for Brisbane Roar over a longer period. There's been a lot of reasons why we end up in this position, and there's a lot of context around it that's been well documented. What I can say is, the team and the staff, the players and the people inside our 4 walls are very resolute with where we're going long term. And whilst we're disappointed, yes, it is a results-based industry, and yes, we want to win, and yes, we're pushing to try and get results. We also have to take the positives that come with this pain and suffering that we're in, and tonight there are plenty. If you look at young Sam Klein, he's a YDA for us. He's not yet scholarshiped, but young Queensland boy making his starting debut, I thought his performance was very good. If you look at a young Pearson, Kasawaya making his first appearance off the bench at A-League level, if you knew where he's from and how far, what his journey's been like to get to this point, we don't have, the luxury, let's say, of a Melbourne City to go, deep into our academy through the years and bring through products that understand your formations over 6 and 7 years, and go through athletic profiling and position profiling to find the right players. We have to be very resourceful. So guys like Jacob Brissett and Pearson are guys that we've made additions to in the off season, and to see both of them progressing the way they are gives us a real positive to hang on to. And also the sale of a Thomas Waddingham, that doesn't happen by chance. That happens by backing one of our own young scholars through a difficult period of this rebuild, and then watching him go and score and lead the line and shoulder that responsibility. Another positive that we've actually got a sale, and it progresses the club forward and progresses his career. So I try not to make it about myself. I try and look at the bigger picture. I think it's important that we have clarity on the context, and I think it's important that in these tough times it's my job to lead, and that's what I'll continue to do.
Ruben, you mentioned before last season the the losing run before you came in. Just thinking back to last season, it started with a run to the Australia Cup final under Ross Aloisi, and then they started the season really strongly. Then Ross leaves and the form turns. Did something change between after Ross left, or was that a false dawn? What do you think went wrong after those early promising signs last season?
Look, I think there's a few things there. I wasn't at the club, first of all, so it's hard to comment about the inner workings, but what I can say is obviously the team had a really positive off-season and a really good pre-season, and the Australia Cup run probably gave a lot of confidence to the team, and they started the season really well. You don't have to look too hard, though, in that run of games. They lost 5-2 away to Wellington. There were some losses there, some 3-0 losses. There were some different moments in that positive start, where it started to come apart, winning 2-0 in the final of the FA Cup and then conceding 3 in the second half. So if you go back and look at the results, there's a lot of games lost by small margins then. And by the time I arrived at the club, obviously a lot of players on the injury table. Not so much depth, which again comes down to the financial constraints. If you don't have the budget of the bigger teams, you don't have the depth. If you don't have an academy, you don't have younger players to draw on. There are a lot of reasons why the club found itself in that position. I guess the current state of the club is, whilst results-wise isn't great, what I can say is we're making a lot of progress with some of our younger players, and obviously, each window we look to try and strengthen, and this is probably at our bottom now, but it's not where we'll end up.
Because I remember when you came down in Tarneet, you talked about how the plans you were doing, how you were involved in planning for the future. You've referenced some of the on-field stuff that you're doing, bringing through young players, but you've also hinted at backroom stuff and administrative stuff that needs to change as well. What's some of that stuff that you're talking about? I'm getting the sense that, improving the academy is one of the things you're talking about, the infrastructure in place there. But aside from the immediate on-the-field stuff, what do you feel needs to improve at Brisbane Roar?
Look, I think you hit the nail on the head. The first point of call would be to really start to rebuild our own academy and our own processes to produce our own players. That can help you financially as well. If you're producing your own players, you don't have to go outside your state to go and get them. That's a big part. Obviously, there's the business workings of the club, which I know our management are working really, really hard on, and there's been some improvements and kind of had to steady the ship in a lot of ways for the owners. But then also in the middle of that process and that hard work, there's also been budget cuts, and those financial cuts play a big part on every team, but they play a big part on us, probably more so than some of the others that have the luxury to be able to just find that money from somewhere else and continue on. So look, we try not to be honest, our playing group and our staff, we don't focus on that. That's the business workings of the club is for someone else to focus on. We try and focus on the development of our football team and our playing model. And again tonight I thought while City probably were the more dominant in front of goal, probably created a few more chances than us. We still had probably the lion's share of the ball, and we're definitely in that game. And you look at the 4 weeks previous, same thing, positive performances where we've created more shots, more chances, and more possession. So there's something there for us to work on and hang on to. And through difficult times, sometimes you have to be very resolute, and you have to have a clear vision of where you're going and clear processes, and we've got that.
You mentioned a few positives from tonight. One of them was the performance of Macklin Freak between goals. Just produced some amazing saves and probably kept you in the game more than any other player, didn't he?
Yeah, look, I think he hasn't been at his best at the start of this season, to be honest, but I think the last 2 weeks Macklin's played really well and made some really good saves, which is a positive to see. Like I've spoken about, the performances of young, Jacob Brissett and Sam Klein and Pearson and Quinn McNichol, a couple of 17-year-olds and a couple of 18-year-olds. Lucas Harrington's played his, I don't even know how many games he's played in a row now, but for his he's never done that before. Played 3 games in a short space of time, quick turnarounds coming down here. He's 17 years old. His body's not fully developed, to be honest. He's 6'4" and doesn't have a muscle definition on him just yet. But for him to go out there and play like that's a massive positive. But he looked tired. And then some of the senior ones, like look at a Jay O'Shea. You want to talk about spirit and character and leadership and other boys together, then look no further than your leader. And tonight again, he was, his effort was massive, his quality was huge, and right until the very end of the game, he's coaching, leading, and inspiring his teammates. So, look, like I say, we've got a really together group. We've got a really together staff. We've got a really together club. But unfortunately for us, we're just in a difficult period.
By the time you next take the field, the transfer window will be open for 2 days. So I imagine Hall will be available for selection then. But do you anticipate any other players that you've lined up becoming available by the time the Sydney game comes around? And also, without asking you to go into details of Waddingham's exit, does his departure give you flexibility in the transfer window in terms of being able to bring players in?
Yeah, look, until that deal's done, we don't know exactly what that looks like. But obviously, you know, if it's good business for us, then we can use that to try and strengthen our men's team. Henry Hall coming back in, like I keep saying, he was our best player last year in terms of goal involvements, assists and goals scored, equal leading goal scorer. If you take that out of any team, then obviously they're going to struggle a little bit. That's, again, something we had to do. We had to let him go on loan for financial reasons for us, to be honest. He's not a player I was happy to get rid of. So I'm glad he comes back into the fray. He'll be a big addition. And then obviously we want to make additions to the squad that can help us on the pitch with results. But then, you know, it would be very naive us to look short-term, just for short-term players and whatever's available. It's still got to be the right fit for us longer-term. But we want to make additions. We want to strengthen in every window, and we'll look to do that.
And just tonight, any injury concerns coming out of the game?
Look, there's a few boys that are carrying some niggles into the game. Obviously, our depth's being tested. We had Corey Brown out to a knock today. We've lost Ben Warland to ACL. And a couple of others, obviously boys that haven't quite got to the game with certain niggles and bits and pieces. So our depth gets tested, and again, that's it could have a big impact on the result. Look, let's not forget tonight we're missing our leading goal scorer at the moment, Thomas Waddingham, and he's been leading the line for us through a difficult period. He would have made a difference if he was here tonight. Without him, we're a little bit without, but sometimes you have to have short-term suffering for a long-term gain, and that's certainly where we keep our focus.